To get started, why don't you just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Okay, so my name's Ashley. So I am It's a Farm Life, and I've been a pharmacist for almost 10 years. So this will be this is year 10 for me. And I've done a little bit of everything that you can do in pharmacy. I've worked retail, I've done long-term care. I was a emergency room pharmacist for years. I've done the hospital thing. And throughout the majority of the time, I've been working at a MAT facility, so a medication-assisted treatment center, or methadone clinic, as a lot of people like to call it. I've been there this is year 7. So pretty much right since the beginning, almost. And it's just been, I've loved it. Like, I have a good team. It's great. I've been there, like I said, 7 years. And then maybe going on 4 years ago, I got a really cool opportunity to work at a federally qualified healthcare center. So that's an FQHC. Some people know them as a community health center. It really just depends. And I've been there for 4 years. So I go kind of back and forth between the two. The crazy part about it is the FQHC has actually partnered with my methadone treatment center. So they come in. We have this cool mobile RV that does, we put one of our providers on it, and they can do everything from vision checks to teeth cleaning to a full-blown physical. It really just depends on which RV we bring out for the day. And so it's great. So they've scheduled a couple of events at the center where they'll come in, and it's really cheap. The prices that they have, I think it's like $25 to $50 maybe for a full workup. We do also run a lot of different programs. So we have a really big unhoused program. So I know for our unhoused patients, and that's a huge issue that we have a lot with people who are in recovery, and those who are still actively using, they do those services for free.
I love that. Because I know when I was out there homeless and pregnant, and I could not find resources whatsoever. It was extremely difficult.
It's really hard. Like, it's crazy. And then I feel like the people who know, like, I hate to say they gatekeep, but it's like, if you know, you know.
Right.
And if you don't know, it's not like someone goes, hey, I'm a resource. Come here. Let me help you.
There's so many people out there struggling, and I think it's amazing that it's a wraparound service, right, Kyle?
Yeah, that's absolutely awesome, because I was homeless for a little bit too. It's not fun, and I fortunately had some friends that I could kind of rely on, but being out on the streets is hard.
Yeah,
and then you neglect yourself in so many ways. Like, we neglect ourselves, teeth, dental, obviously teeth, but vision, stuff like that.
And yeah, because I mean, they're so expensive. I mean, just to go to the dentist to have a normal cleaning, and if you're going through something, that's the last on your list. It's not even probably on your list. You're like, the dentist, like, yeah, I mean, I know what it is.
Mental health services as well.
And so our facility, so both facilities offer mental health. So of course, at the Methadone Treatment Center, all of our patients are signed up with a counselor. We have different groups throughout the week. So pretty much depending on what your primary self-medication of choice is, there'll be groups that are targeted to that. There's also like a financial group that can help people with resources such as finding a job and like kind of money management. And they all meet different times and different days of the week, so they can try to accommodate everyone's schedule.
So with that, I mean, financial services are huge, because most people who are active addiction and have been active addiction for a long time, you don't hardly learn that stuff in school as it is. So it's like, you've been using probably through your younger years. You probably didn't go to college because you were using. So having a base where that can finally be taught, that can change a whole life right there.
I mean, even like me, like, you know, I went through pharmacy school and they never taught anything financially at all.
Right.
So, you know, you come out of school and you owe all this money, you're trying to like teach yourself, because we didn't learn it in school at all.
How was school? So I know for pharmacy school, you can end up going for a long time. What does that all entail?
Yeah, so now it's changed a little bit. It really just depends on your program. I did 2 years of undergrad work, and that was like just English, math, a bunch of science. I took like biology, chemistry, organic chemistry. I think I took physics.
Microbiology, I remember those type of classes. You
Oh,
got to be very smart to be in that field, I feel like.
gosh, I had a tutor, and honestly, he made a killing off me. So
Right.
it was like the one thing that my family was willing to help me out with was like a tutor. Other than that, they were like, "You're on your own." But
What made you want to become a pharmacist?
oh, so crazy story. So when I was in high school, like I wanted to have, I wanted to have my own money so I can buy my own stuff, right?
I
Your
love
parents won't
that.
buy it. Yeah.
Independent.
Oh, and I needed a job, and no one would hire me because I had no work experience. And someone told me to be a volunteer. So I signed up for a hospital volunteer program. And of course, I was like, oh, I want to be in pediatrics. And that's what I requested. And they put me in the pharmacy.
Wow.
Yeah. And I
And
was,
then you just found a love for it?
I don't know. It was kind of weird. Like I was the only student that came, like the only volunteer who came back for the second day. So when I showed
Wow.
up on day two, they were like, why are you here? And I
So
was like,
so many people were disappointed because they didn't get to go where they wanted to
yeah,
go.
they were like, no one ever shows up for day two.
Now, how many years of schooling is it
I did
to become a farm?
6.
Wow, that's a
So two
lot.
years of undergrad and 4 years of pharmacy school. But your last year of school is like, it's all like clinical hands-on experience.
Now, one of the things that I want to know, especially because you work in the addiction field, when you're in school, do they talk about like stigma and
Not really in school, but since I've been out of school all the time. So when I
wow,
tell people that I work at a methadone clinic, they're just like what? Like, oh my gosh. Like what do you do there? And I'm just like, yeah, like, and they have this preconceived notion of, everyone's like, what does someone who is addicted look like? This whole face of addiction.
geez.
And it's always like this homeless, like, bum who made all these bad choices. And I'm just like, yeah, no, no, like it's not that at all. And it's even more, I guess, ironic. So I think one of our, maybe like our second year of pharmacy school, um, our dean actually runs a pharmacist program, and this is for pharmacists who become addicts themselves. And part of their 12 steps was that they come in and they present and they all tell their stories. So we had about 5 people who came in and they all told, their addiction and recovery story. So eye-opening because I think for like one of the girls, she was in a car wreck. And so she was in a car wreck. She broke, I don't know, her arm, her leg, something like that. And they gave her pain pills.
Yep.
And she says that within the first week, she said she was hooked, full blown.
Well, so I'm trying to do the math here. So whenever you would have been like your general working as a pharmacy technician, stuff like that, you were like there right when everything almost happened, like right before the opiate epidemic technically started. And so you were there whenever they were just getting passed out like
When
crazy.
they were going like candy. So when I first started, I remember we had this one doctor who's in town that we were not allowed to fill prescriptions for. And it was just flat
Wow.
out like you can't fill for him. But I mean, we would still have people coming in with those prescriptions and they were for 300, like huge quantities, 360 pills.
That's how I
And
feel like one of my previous doctors was, where like he sent people to a certain pharmacy. He's like, go to that pharmacy, they'll fill it for you, and that one won't.
we had a
Right.
pharmacy in town that was shut down because of that.
Right.
Really?
Yeah, the DEA
That was
came
a
in.
thing like 10 years ago, like around that time, that was like a big thing with doctors getting in trouble.
And it led to some pharmacists actually getting in trouble as well.
Right.
If you were the pharmacy that was known to fill, um, yeah. So I think for that particular guy, they told him he could retire or he could retire in prison.
Wow.
He took retirement.
Wow. Now, do they press charges when something like that happens? They pull the license, but like
Yeah.
criminal
Yes,
charges?
I can be charged civic from both a civic and criminal standpoint.
Wow.
Yes, so
When you're in that point too, like obviously there are things that you as a pharmacist, you can deny a prescription and stuff like that. So were the standards back then somewhat the same? And what does it take for a pharmacist to actually deny somebody?
so this is company specific. I will say that. So a lot of your big box retailers, the
CVS,
Walmart,
Walgreens,
CVS,
right.
Publix, Winn-Dixie, they are very much, they say they're customer centered. And I think sometimes they get customer and profit confused.
Yep.
And they say they're customer centered. And as pharmacists, we would be told that, you can deny a prescription if it looks fraudulent, but that was pretty much it.
So if it came from a doc and you knew it came from a doc, you technically shouldn't.
Yeah, so like if it was a doc who we were told that we couldn't fill for, because maybe we knew the doctor was under investigation, then you would receive like correspondence from like the higher up saying like at this time we're not filling prescriptions from this particular doc. But other than that, there was really nothing you could do. You didn't really have a leg to stand on. And you could try to say, well, no, I don't feel comfortable filling this prescription. But if someone complained,
You had to do it anyway.
yeah, you were going to have to fill the prescription. Now, I'm in a smaller subset now.
Right.
All of my providers, for probably 80% of the prescriptions that I fill, they're written by people who work with me.
Right.
So
Right. So their handwriting, like the normal pills that they would give to people. I'm sure that you guys pay attention to all those things, right?
yes. And I think now a lot of them have taken a lot more courses about, opioids and addiction. And so because of that, they're very weary to write, or they're only writing. So we've kind of, our patients have, we call them narcotic agreements. So with that, the patients can be asked to have complete a drug test at any time. They have pill countbacks. They can only fill at a certain pharmacy.
Now, do you do that with the Suboxone as well? Like the pill, like count the wrappers? My clinic used to make me come back for a callback, and I had 24 hours to get there with my empty wrappers versus and then they would check like the lot number, right, on the bottom.
And see, we don't do the films with the Suboxone, so all of mine have been unit dose because I just have the pills. But
okay.
You can get called at any time. You have 24 hours to report, and they're going to go and check all your bottles. It's my nurse. My nurse is amazing, worth her weight in gold. She's so awesome. She's been there longer than I've been there. Amazing lady. But she goes through, she checks everything, and yep.
How often does that kind of thing happen? Is it because like there is kind of a red flag, like something seems off, or they just do it random because they should? Both.
So if something seems off, then they'll do a call back. So our patients do have drug tests. So they get randomly drug tested anywhere from like 1 to 2 times a month.
Sure.
And then that can lead to a callback. But other than that, all of our patients have like those numbers, your little like patient identification number.
Yes.
Keep it all nice and then like, give you a layer of privacy so that people aren't there like screaming out your entire government name to anyone and everyone. Right. And so I think they put in like a random number generator. And it's just like, this is the lucky number. And they'll actually write it. We have a big whiteboard when you come in, and they'll write the number on there.
That's
go and look at the board. It's like, dang it, I got to do it again.
Yeah, it's like, the minute that you walk in. We even have an app now that's like super fancy. So when you go and like check in to say that you're on your way or you're there, they're just like, yeah, you got a random today. So you already know like like how your day's going to go, I guess.
Do you know what the differences are whenever it comes to MAP medications and stuff when you get to like Canada or Europe or, wherever?
I don't really. So I know that I made a video about it. It's that what is it? Ibogaine.
In Mexico,
It's
I saw that one.
in Mexico. Yes. So it's a little iffy. I've heard that it works. I've heard that it's crazy expensive, supposedly. Now, I don't
Right.
know if
It's
that
like over $10,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
US.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, Mexico too, right? You gotta go
Gosh,
to Mexico.
it's $10,000 American. Oh wow.
And
Right.
we had someone on a previous one that started a ibogaine clinic, and even he's like, at this point, ibogaine is not really the way to go. You're better off doing like ketamine treatments and NAD plus stuff like that. So I know some people that have had good luck with ibogaine, but there are a lot of risks, and some of that is literally just because you're in Mexico and you don't know what the heck's gonna happen.
You don't know what you're getting. The regulations are a little different. I mean, I'm not well versed at all in Mexican, pharmaceuticals in terms of, I mean, is it anyone and everyone who can just set up and say, yeah, this is what I'm infusing to you. So
It's a little weird there too, which I know a lot of people who have difficulties with getting their prescription and everything. They kind of wish it would be like Mexico, because for the most part, you can just go into the pharmacy and pick what you need.
anything.
Yeah.
Right.
So
You can get codeine over the counter.
Yeah.
I've actually paid a pharmacist to write me a script.
yeah, and so like I spent some time in Fiji when I was a student, and Fiji was the same way. Like there were so many
Wow,
things.
Fiji must have been amazing.
Fiji was amazing. It was
I need to go
amazing.
there.
So I was there for several weeks. It was kind of, I guess, the pharmacy version of study abroad. And I worked there in several different clinics, and it's wild. They have universal health care. Let's start there. And everyone gets their prescriptions filled at the hospital pharmacy. So if you go to like Fiji's version of a CVS, it's just like a status thing. It's like, yes, I have the money to pay for this, and I just want to throw money away and pay for my prescriptions. But other than
Wow.
that, you just go to the hospital pharmacy, and everything is like unit dosed. And we were filling people's prescriptions, and we put them in a Ziploc bag with a handwritten label. We're like, here you go. Like, here you go.
Wow.
It's wild.
Do you feel like that is in some ways more effective? Like, is there a lot of addiction and stuff going on there, or how's that correlate?
There's a lot of alcoholism there.
Really?
Yes. So there is this tribal drink. It's called kava. And it's made with like some sort of herb, and I'm not really
like
sure
kava
what.
leaf, right? They have
Yes.
pills, right? Kava.
Yeah, but over there, I think the pills that we get here versus what's over there, completely
It's different.
different.
Yep.
And they mix it with water, and I kid you not, it looks like a mud puddle.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's brown. It's muddy. It's gritty. It tastes like dirt.
Yeah.
And they give you a coconut shell, and that's how you drink it.
Wow.
And
Oh,
so,
that's weird.
yeah, there's a lot of addiction with kava, and then it leads to a lot of actual domestic violence issues. So that's a huge thing there.
I wanted to talk about our sponsor real quick. We have Betty. Betty is an amazing life coach. She works in rehab centers. She works with a ton of people doing life coaching for couples, for addiction, for jobs, for anything and everything you could think of. And she has been awesome enough to offer for anyone that watches the show, if you text her the code PodTox, you get your very first session for free. So,
Which is super valuable because I took advantage of her sessions, and I work with two different types of therapists, and the way that she sees things is different because she's trying to help you moving forward from this point forward. That's what a life coach is about. So a lot of people get that confused with therapy. Therapy is moving backwards. Life coach is moving forward. So she has a different perspective, and it's unique.
So we learned about, substance abuse and methadone subs in pharmacy school. And it was maybe 2 lectures at best, real quick. I knew nothing about methadone treatment facilities or anything until I was working with another pharmacist, and she worked at my current facility. And
Wow.
she was sitting there and she was telling me about it. And I said, that is so interesting. I'm like, I would love to learn more. And she just spent time telling me about it. And I said, hey, if you ever, hear of an opportunity, I'm super interested. Like, I think it's really cool what you do. And she said, okay. And so we had a conversation like that. And maybe 3 months later, she goes, hey, you remember that one time you said that you were like interested in working at a, treatment facility? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, so I have all these vacation days that I need, and there's no one to work. And so I told my boss about you. And she's like, so I'm thinking you can just come in and learn.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's how it worked out.
When you started telling family about your job, did they look at you like, why are you gonna work with people that are struggling?
So honestly, I think my family wasn't really surprised at all, to be like honest. If anything, my family complains because I'm the person who cares too much.
Right,
So,
empathy. You have to have empathy and compassion to work with people in recovery.
yes. And so, I mean, when I started, even as a student, like as a tech in pharmacy, I worked in like the hood. And even now, like the FQHC, we are probably in the worst possible location ever. It's just, I walked to my car and heard gunshots.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's funny. People are like, are you scared to work at the methadone clinic? And I'm just like, I'm more scared to work at the FQHC. The methadone clinic is fine.
What do you do if someone is demanding meds from you? Is there like a button that you could press?
Yes,
Or
and
like,
like a lot of pharmacies have like panic, alarms and buttons, and we both the methadone treatment center and the FQHC, we both have security. And I always tell everybody that I'm super feisty. So I think now, yeah, they're just like, we'll leave her alone.
Well, and it would take a lot of desperation because no one's going to go in and mess up at the methadone clinic because most anybody in there actually, like, they need their
Yeah.
medication.
I think it would have to be like, you would stand a better chance trying to like try something at an FQHC, which is wild because we're within a healthcare facility with 10 other departments.
I'm going to be straight up honest. I've thought about jumping the counter so many times.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I've been that desperate that I was like, you know what? I have nothing left to lose. I've called in prescriptions before for benzos and got caught in 3 different pharmacies
Yep.
because I was using the number on the top of the script,
Uh-huh.
and they would ask for a hard copy to be faxed over, and I would tell them later, and boom, I finally got caught, and I was facing 10 years for that.
Oh, wow. So we had a technician, a pharmacy tech. She worked in a pharmacy and she posed as the pharmacist and did this and pretended to transfer a prescription. And she
Wow.
was doing it. And she got caught by chance because they couldn't hear something that she said because she would leave voicemails. And so they couldn't hear something that she said. And the pharmacist called like, hey, like, can I just clarify this? Because I couldn't hear what she was saying towards the end. She kind of mumbled a little bit. And they were like, I don't know, let's say the pharmacist's name was like Katie. And she was like, yeah, I just spoke with, like, Katie just left me a message. And they were like, yeah, Katie's on vacation. She's been on vacation, like at the beach for a week.
What if a pill drops on the floor? Do you have to, you gotta, I saw you talking about that the other day with the Ozempic shot, correct?
It was, I spilled some methadone
Insulin.
the other day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have to do so much paperwork. So it's at the FQHC, if I drop a pill, like if I drop like a Norco pill or something like that on the floor, it's not as bad. We can just kind of be like, hey, we dropped it on the floor. It's being quarantined for destruction. Really simple.
And then what do they do? How do they destroy the pill?
We have a whole party, like a company that comes in.
Wow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they have to give us like copies of these like all these forms for the DEA to say like, hey, we destroyed this many pills and we verified it was these pills. Now at the methadone like treatment center, it's insane. If I lose a pill, if a bottle, like sometimes when bottles are shipped in, they can be short one pill. It happens every now and again. It's super rare. Maybe like once a
Right.
year.
You know what it was? It triggered my memory. The Suboxone pills were a little shaved down, like they,
Yeah.
right? In the bottle, from it being shooken around, right?
Yes.
That's
And
what
we
it
switched
was.
brands and they were basically crushed. And so I have to
Right.
do a whole bunch of paperwork. I have to have like my nurse come in and witness that these pills are crushed.
I remember, yeah.
The program director has to come in. We do but they have to be quarantined. I have to do paperwork. I have to send an email. It's a lot just to be like, I saw those pills and that just ruined my entire day. I said, this is
Right.
going to be the next hour. It's going to be paperwork. And us sitting
Right
there.
then and there.
And then like when they're crushed, it's hard to tell like, is that one pill or is it three?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're trying to judge like the amount of powder off of the pill
And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is a brand new bottle. I just opened this bottle. Like there's security cameras everywhere. I'm like, you can pull the cameras and see that I opened the bottle, that I dumped its contents, and that obviously I'm 2 pills short. So either they shorted me 2 pills or all this crushed residue. Those are the pills.
The leftover, yeah.
Yeah. It sucks.
Does
But at
that-
least I know that the patients don't get broken pills. We run such a tight inventory. So we know automatically if something's missing because we count our like all of our meds probably 3 times a day. So the nurse counts when she gets there in the morning and we have like an active list of this is how much you should have. So if it says she's supposed to have, 13 doses of 150 milligrams and she only has 12, we have to figure out where the 13th dose is. So sometimes that means pulling tapes to see if we accidentally gave somebody something extra.
that's got to be a lot of digging for you.
Yeah.
It is.
Major inconvenience. Absolutely.
It is wild. Like you have to we'll check like the safes to see if maybe it got put in the wrong spot. So then you count everything to make sure, like, are you just missing one? Or are you short one and over one? It's a lot of paperwork. I mean, we have watched tapes. We have crawled on the floor to see if we found something behind something. There have been a couple of days where we've just been sitting there like in silence looking at each other going, are we losing our minds? Like, do we really want to sit here and have to, and then we'll be drug tested as well. So it's something,
Do they do randoms and then like scheduled ones for you? How does that work?
For us, it's random.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they can call me at any time for a drug test myself just to make sure. I mean, I can't take my, like any sort of personal item, like my purse or anything like that.
Right. Like a coat with pockets and yeah.
Yeah. That's not allowed at any time. Like if I have my vest that I like to wear because it's heated, it has pockets, but I mean, they could ask to search my pockets,
Sure.
search my
Yeah.
purse,
What about
search my
med
bag.
shortages? Are you like, I know there's so many med shortages right now. How do you handle that? And how do you de-escalate people that are nervous about that?
So maybe like a couple of years ago, we actually had a methadone shortage.
Yep.
It was
Right. I
terrible.
remember.
Luckily we have like we kind of plan out all of our purchases for methadone. Like, I think it's something like I have to have like a couple of weeks supply just so we can get through. And because we're tiered into another company, they can kind of shift inventory from maybe another location that has a lot, or maybe their client population has dropped. So that's always great. If anything, for crazy things that have been on shortage at the clinic, I have run out of bottles.
Wow.
Yes, that was awful because I couldn't make like really any doses in advance. I was making just bare minimum and it was terrible.
Was this COVID times? Because you had to go through
Before
that.
COVID.
Really?
COVID made it worse. I remember
remember-
the tops.
Wow. So more different things than meds, like the the utensils that you would use.
Yeah, so yeah, running out of tops was terrible. Like that was,
Wow.
I had to reuse the tops from the stock bottles for patients. So like none of my stock bottles, like the big bulk bottles of methadone, had tops on them because I was using them for patient doses. I'm like, your
So
tops.
you guys, so you give the actual wafers, right?
No, we do liquid.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So it was terrible. So we had like this big disclaimer, like to everybody, it's like, hey, your tops are going to look a little different. And it's like, because we're out of tops. And then we got a weird brand in and they were impossible to open. I would have like little circular imprints
Wow.
on the tops. They were terrible. But now we're okay.
What's the number one thing right now on the med shortage list? Like what?
Ozempic,
Right.
Monjaro,
Wegovy.
Saxendo, all the good ones, Trulicity. We have a really hard time with all of those. I basically have a technician who spends all day just constantly searching with our supplier. And
Wow.
they may say they have one box and she's like, I'm going to buy that one box. And we have had to somewhat inconvenience our patients. So instead of getting a 3-month supply, they're only going to get a 1-month supply. And I told them just because I would rather have 3 patients with their medication than 1 patient with a 3-month supply.
Right.
So we're trying to stretch resources.
And what about like ADHD meds? I know I have a hard time finding them for my children, like
That was
an
a
extremely
big thing.
difficult time.
The only thing that's saving us is brand name Adderall is crazy expensive at Walmart or CVS. At FQHC, we get it at a ridiculous price. Like, I'm almost embarrassed to say how cheap it is.
Wow.
So because of that, we were selling ours like cash prices. So insurance won't pay for brand. You can try to get an override. It works. It's a 50-50 chance.
Adderall had that shortage not long ago, and like people were getting their Adderall, but it wasn't working, and people were coming up with like negative drug tests when they were taking their medication.
Yes.
Because they weren't actually giving people Adderall. It was like all placebo. What happens in some situation like that? Has that ever happened in your experience before?
Not with Adderall. I've had people who have pain meds who have told me that they feel like certain brands do not work as well.
Yep.
But it's true. That is a true fact. All the way down to something as simple for patients who take thyroid medications or patients who take blood thinners. So if you're on warfarin or if you're on levothyroxine, we're even taught in school, when you put a patient on a brand, very specific, maker of that medication, that is the one that you want to keep them on. So I believe it. Basically, I think I have one pain medication where I've had so many patients who've complained about this one particular brand that we won't even carry it because I get complaints left and right.
Right.
And if it was one person, I would say it was a fluke. But if it's 80% of the people who are getting it,
Something's wrong.
something's wrong.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
they hate them. Everyone complains about them. I mean, I had one lady who called me and she flat out told me that she thought I had switched her pills with like Tylenol or something.
Wow.
And I was like,
You know
no,
what?
ma'am.
I've heard people say that. They feel like the potency isn't the norm. Like they feel like something's missing, something's off.
It's one particular drug manufacturer. I'm not sure what they do. I mean, obviously they've been regulated and inspected, but
Right.
we have a hard time with them. I don't even carry it anymore because it's just not worth it. So
kind of going back to the like regular pharmacy, because so many people have so many questions whenever it comes to the pharmacy. Why don't I have my medication? What goes wrong all the time that it's just like people have to freak out?
I hate to lay blame, but doctors' offices.
Yep.
Yes, like I tell people all the time, your doc, and I tell my own doctors this, like even at my facility, just they have no idea how much medications cost. They don't know anything about your insurance. They're going to swear up and down that their software has a feature that can tell them the price of something and that it's covered by your insurance. I don't know what that software is telling them, but
Not that.
Not the right thing.
no. I had a patient come in and she told me that her doctor told her that her medication was going to be over $700. And she was like, I don't even know why she wrote this medication because I can't afford it.
Wow.
Her medication was $15.
Really?
And I've had another patient that told me that her doctor told her it would be ready when she got there. Now, mind you, her doctor's office is 10 steps from the pharmacy.
Sure.
10 steps. She had 15 medications.
Right. You're not getting it done that quick.
No.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm like, ma'am, if I could fill 15 medications that quickly, you should be extremely worried because I'm probably about to like accidentally harm you.
Right.
And it was crazy because her doctor wrote for basically 2 of the same meds and they were diabetes medications. And I'm like, this will put you into a hypoglycemic shock. You could be in a coma from this had I not taken the extra 5 minutes to look at this and say, this is the same medication that she's written and you would have been harmed.
So what happens when like you're at the doctor's office, you get your medication supposedly sent over to the pharmacy? Because I swear I literally am dealing with this right now with
and
my
it goes nowhere.
It's like my doctor, I called Thursday morning to get that filled. Why do I not have my meds in? Like, come on now. So what happens when it actually does get to you? Because I know for a lot of things, this do all e-scripts or it's written now. So you get that, and what is the process?
So most of our prescriptions are e-scripts. You're right. So they're sent electronically, kind of like, think like an email.
Okay.
And they all go into this giant queue. And it's in order of time, which sounds wild because your doctor could be sending your prescription. So there's going to be at least a 1-second delay on each of your prescriptions, right?
Right.
Well, in the meantime, another doctor could be sending in prescriptions too.
So it gets bumped, right?
So it can bump. So there may be one prescription that's like Kyle, then it may be like Marie, Kyle.
They get mixed in there.
They'll get mixed in. And so we have like one technician and her job is to type all those prescriptions. So she's processing. And she runs them all through and they print like the little hard copies and it prints your prescription label. And that goes to another technician and she's the person who fills everything. So she's filling everything. And then, so while that's happening, I will go through and I will look at what the first tech, what she typed. So I'm going to look at it and say, okay, this really is a prescription for Kyle. She typed the right drug, right directions, and make sure that it makes sense because you would be surprised how many times I have received a prescription that says chew one patch. That's a favorite. I don't know why we're telling people it's supposed to go on their arm and the docs will be like chew one patch. Our docs have prescriptions that say 1 tab orally, once daily, twice daily, 3 times daily, as needed, take as directed. And I'm like, are we titrating up? Are we titrating down? Is this 3 times a day as needed? And then you'll go over and you'll ask the doc and she'll go, oh, it was only supposed to be 1 time a day. And I'm like, did you read your prescription?
Yep.
And they're like, no. And just recently we had a doctor and this poor patient was on lisinopril for his blood pressure. And 1 month we would get a prescription for lisinopril 10 milligrams. The next month we got a prescription for a lisinopril 40, then lisinopril 10, then lisinopril 40. And it went back and forth like this for 4 months. We finally called the doctor's office and we were like, what are y'all doing? Like, can you tell us what you want? Because we have 10s and we have 40s and we're unsure. And the doc goes, oh, that's so wild. I actually wanted the 20s.
Wow.
What?
That's crazy.
4 months.
Okay, so a lot of times, which I believe that it's definitely a lot of the time the doctor, and I think people get so frustrated because it's like it's been 3 days. Why is my prescription not ready yet? And that is that right there, some of it. So you show up and you think your prescription is ready, but what happens when one of those people that's supposed to do one of those jobs isn't there? Because that's what's happening now.
Yeah,
Yes.
the understaffing at pharmacies
Yeah.
is causing so many issues.
Well, this is the part where I get to brag, and I think one of my texts was she was on the live earlier,
I
so
saw
I
her.
was like, Kyle, if you're here, I am blessed to have the best staff. I am fully staffed. Knock on wood, like, gosh,
Right.
fully staffed. I have an amazing staff. They work well with each other. We tease each other all the time, but they are on their A game. So we have not. We previously did experience the shortage. We did. But if one person's out, like if Kyle is out for the day, I have someone else who is in that spot. Like they will just pick up the slack. Now, do things get crazier? Yes, all the time. But we try to be really realistic with people. If you have 15 prescriptions, you got a long wait.
Right.
Now, do you like having to mix the prescriptions? Like when it's something that you personally, do you do that a lot?
No, so they just changed the law. And we
Really?
can't, yeah. So we used to make stuff like magic mouthwash for like if people had ulcers and
Right.
stuff. We can't compound anymore. It's terrible. It sucks.
Why did they change that? Like, is it because of like patents?
It had a lot to do with, you may not remember this because this was like a long time ago. It was probably 15 years ago, maybe 20. There was a pharmacy up north, I want to say in Maine, and they were compounding something. They were making something, a whole batch of it for a bunch of people. And their batch was contaminated because they were not using proper like aseptic technique where you have to wash your hands and not touch stuff and all this stuff. And they gave several people meningitis,
Wow.
and at least one person died.
So how right now with like people on like Wegovy, Ozempic, you could get it from a compounding pharmacy, correct?
You can. And so the law says that a medication can be compounded if it is not commercially available or
Right.
on the short supply list. So Mounjaro is on the short supply list. Ozempic is on the short supply list. I tell people if you choose to go that route, do your research.
Right. You
Like
could get into some sketchy pharmacies.
you can get, if it seems too good to be true, it's too good to be true. And when
I
you are
agree.
injecting yourself with something, you can end up hospitalized.
Yep.
So Ozempic is something that's being injected into your abdomen, you know? It's
Right.
not like they can cut it off if it gets
Right.
infected. It's not your arm. They can't just
Right.
say, oh, we'll just cut it off and you'll be fine. So I would really tell people to just use some caution with that, to really think about, look into, like, don't be afraid to ask questions.
Did you evolve into like the harm reduction, or did you always have those views? Or did working in the methadone clinic make it like that?
Maybe a combination, I think, especially working at, like, I think, especially since I've been working at the methadone clinic, since I've been at the FQHC, I've been serving a underserved population for, the last 7 years.
Right.
And I feel like because I have seen so much, it has really shifted a lot of maybe preconceived notions or opinions that maybe I had, or things that are kind of taught or implied in pharmacy school. I'm here to help.
Right.
That's it. And so that's the amazing thing about the FQHC, that regular pharmacy is, yes, medications like Januvia, Farxiga. Yes, I could charge you $50 for them. I could charge you $150 for them. I could.
Right.
I can also charge you $10 for them because $10 gets you your medication and it pays the light bill and it pays my staff.
How do you feel about like gabapentin is a very big one. It is
Right.
prescribed for literally everything now, and it's
Everything.
horrible. How do you, especially because I know pharmacists know the ins and outs of how the medication actually works. So whenever you get that GAB prescription in for 20 different things in a day, like, what do you even do about that?
It really just depends. And I guess that's the good part about knowing my providers. For the most part, we can kind of like talk through some of our patients. I always tell like my docs, like, hey, when y'all are going to go off the wall, right in here, like just put one daily for mood, one daily for depression, one daily for pain. I'm tracking with you. I always tell people depression hurts and it can manifest as physical pain. You know, when you're mentally not in a good spot, you will hurt. You will be in physical pain.
Now, that's one thing that I wanted to say. So, like, I used to be addicted to benzos, but they actually caused me more anxiety, believe it or not. And then I had to like kind of de-escalate when I came off of them and find my new normal.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing with pain meds.
Yeah.
And I think it's because you have these like euphoric like effects from it, but they can only last so long.
Right.
So then you're yo-yoing, and your body's like, what the heck am I going to expect? And then it causes this anxiety, and you're just like, what the heck, all the time. And then when you come off, you feel like crap.
Does your clinic help people to titrate off of benzos the proper way? Because I get so many messages that people like, my doctor just cut me off.
Who? At the FQHC, yes, they will titrate, regardless if they're titrating for pain medications or benzos. It's a long taper. Our doc is a slow taperer.
But I like that. Low and slow. Like, that's the way that I feel like it's successful for people.
She'll taper it that way. At the clinic, so like our clinic doesn't write for benzos. So if they have a patient that's on benzos, they have to do like this collaborative care. So where they speak with the provider who has been writing them, and that's how they work that taper out approach that way. So everyone's on the same page. There's a lot of like notes about the patients that go back and forth, just to kind of be like, okay, this is what the plan is. Now, I have seen some like docs who will do like, you know, take somebody off of Xanax and go to like one of the like lower, like maybe something like Klonopins or Ativans. They're shorter acting, they're weaker, and kind of use that as a taper. I don't know. I think that's just throwing something at the wall to see if it works. Because Xanax is so powerful and it lasts so long. It's such a long acting one. Especially if you've ever had people who've had the extended release ones. Like, I mean, they're in your system. People talk about methadone being in your system for a minute. Those Xanaxes will be in there. And then they kind of like, you know, slowly taper someone down. Then they may try something like Ativan because it's super low dose. It's barely going to take the edge off, but it does a little something. And then I think you kind of have that placebo-like effect where you know you're taking a benzo.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
There was one person that was also asking, which I don't know how much you can actually answer about this, but they're asking why people with OUD and SUD don't get proper pain control. And from your end,
honestly, I think this is a liability thing.
right?
Where a lot of patients who have OUD, SUD, who are in clinics, and then you're trying to find someone or another provider to write for something for pain, and everyone just goes, oh my gosh, not it.
Yeah.
And then the patient gets caught in the middle. I have seen just one time actually, and it was funny because it was a patient from my clinic who came to the FQHC and had a ER script for tramadol. And he recognized me and he was like, oh, darn, you're not going to fill this. And I was like, what? And he's like, yeah, you're the mat pharmacist. And he turned back around and walked out the pharmacy. I didn't even recognize him.
Wow.
Like,
Really?
And I was completely baffled by the entire experience until I saw him the next morning at the clinic. And I told him, I was like, yeah, like if doc says it's fine, I'll go ahead and fill that tramadol for you today. And he was like, yeah, it's whatever.
So what's your thoughts on people that are already on certain meds and then they have to have a surgical procedure? Do you think that they should get additional meds on top of what they're already used to? Because that's where people struggle. Like sometimes people, especially people in the pain community, you're used to a certain dose of meds. It's working for you. Now you have to have surgery. So now you're going to be in pain and you're going to need.
And they're going to have to up it. Yes, right. You are going to have to up it because if you have chronic back pain, right, and this is your normal pain, and then you have bypass surgery, that's a different type of pain.
Yep.
Now, right. I do think that, when they are, unless you have emergency surgery, let me kind of specify that, that really has to be a conversation to have, like, hey, I already take, this. And when I take this, my pain on a normal day, just sitting here having a conversation with you is a 5.
Have you guys ever increased someone's methadone dose because they were having surgery? Like, did people ever would they do that at the clinic?
We have never had someone increase, I won't say.
Because it works for pain.
Right, it does work for pain. We've never had one increase because of surgery. Now, if patients come in and let's say they've had surgery and now they're in more pain, so they're getting those weird withdrawal, the body aches all over, the fever, right, the chills, the nausea, vomiting, then they can just ask for an increase and then they'll be increased that way.
How long does an increase take at your clinic? How long does it take?
A couple of days.
Because I have somebody that messages me and says it takes like weeks for them to put the...
No. Now, right. Sometimes I may be the holdup on a dose increase. So let's say a lot of times I make all my take-home doses on Wednesday. So I'm going to try to make them Wednesday. So if a dose increase gets put in on Thursday, then it's kind of wonky. So they may call me in and say, hey, can you come in on Friday and make these dose increases? And I'll be like, yeah, I can. But if that dose increase goes in like on Friday, you're stuck.
Right.
And you're going to have to wait till the next week. They do different things for different people. I know one lady had a dose increase, but she had take-homes. Her take-homes were made. Her dose increase the order was written, but it had never been put into the system.
Right.
And so she kind of got caught in a little spot because they were like, do you want to take these take-home doses with you and keep your current dose? Or do you want to have to come in every single day? And we had to work something out with her. And then also for patients who miss multiple days, if you miss multiple days at the clinic, then we have to taper your dose down.
Yeah.
Now, what if they do a test and they see that the levels are like toxic? Because when I wasn't ready for recovery, abused methadone. And I was getting methadone from the methadone clinic. And then my doctor was writing me for the same amount of milligrams of methadone. And I was combining them. Then I was buying take homes.
Yes. So they will come in. So once anyone goes past 100 milligrams of methadone, they automatically have to sit with us and get their peak and troughs done.
Right.
So test where you are before. They dose you and then they test you I think it's a couple of hours after to see where you're hitting it. And if you're over a certain point, they're like, sucks to be you, you're going back down.
I don't know how no one ever said anything to me. My clinic they never said nothing.
Really?
I was getting away with it for a long time. But this was over 10 years ago, 15 years ago, probably. I'm dating myself now.
I was above a hundo too, but all mine was illegal. So
wow.
Yeah.
They will definitely test in a heartbeat, or even it can be something as simple as you're coming in daily to dose, and the nurse is used to seeing you kind of upbeat and spunky, and then you're coming in and you're kind of more sluggish. You know what I mean? Yeah. They're like,
do they not like methadone and benzos combined together, right?
Right.
Do they ever rule it? do they have a rule at your clinic where they don't want that? Like they don't like, because
It
I do
affects
know
your
people that
take
get both.
homes.
It
You
does.
can't have, yeah, you can't have take homes.
Is that the
What if
same
it's written by a
one?
psychiatrist?
I think they make some sort of like little exceptions based off what it is, but yeah, they have a huge problem with, and it's just because of the respiratory depression that could happen.
That used to be my cocktail together, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that is what they're just so fearful is that, you're going to get the respiratory depression from the methadone, and then you're going to get respiratory depression from Betty. There's no one there. From the benzo, and that you're just going to potentially not wake up.
Do they do that for like medical M? Because Marie, didn't you say that somebody had that?
Right.
Too? Like they had to go every single day because they were smoking and they were on methadone.
Yes, I do know people that have lost their take homes for medical marijuana.
Yeah.
And then myself, when I was on Suboxone, I was a monthly patient and they demoted me because I got my medical marijuana card,
Yep.
which I kind of felt some sort of way because I never failed a drug screen.
Really?
So I felt like they put me down. So they put me down to a bi-weekly patient because of that. I think
Because
it
of
was
that.
about this.
We had a
Right.
patient that was really weird that tested positive for marijuana, and I think they were like adamant that they were not using, but they bought one of those CBD creams or whatever. Yeah, the one that's not supposed to have THC in it. And it was
Right.
full of THC. I think we ended up like having it tested.
Marie, did you have any last minute questions?
No, I think that we pretty much covered everything today, and it was a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
so great. Thank you guys so much for like having me on. Like I'm just truly honored. Thank you.
Yeah, you were a lot of fun to have on. Everybody likes the pharmacist or hates the
Yes.
pharmacist. Depends where you're at.
But we
But-
can tell
Great.
that you're a pharmacist that has empathy and compassion and really tries helping.
That's always been my goal. It's just if not me, then who?